Let's talk about a different kind of sex tourism today. We all have heard of the massage parlors and walking streets of Thailand and the red light district of Amsterdam. Like Thailand and Amsterdam, most sex tourist destinations cater to male sex tourists. But what's happening in the Gambia is the polar opposite. The place has become infamous for female sex tourism. Older women from European countries like Britain, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and the Scandinavian countries travel to Gambia in search of romance, intimacy, and young, well-endowed black male bodies. The female tourists get into relationships with young Gambian men who are drawn into sex tourism due to economic necessity. The locals enter into relationships with tourists in exchange for money, gifts, or the promise of a better life. These relationships can be complex, sometimes resembling romantic partnerships, but they are fundamentally transactional. The locals involved in sex tourism are often referred to as bumpsters or beach boys, terms that underscore their marginalized status. The Gambia is a small West African country and has a population of approximately 2.7 million. The population is characterized by its youthful demographic, with a significant proportion of the population being under the age of 25. The average daily wage in Gambia is quite low due to the country's economic challenges and high levels of poverty. On average, daily wages can range from 50 to 150 Gambian dalasi, equivalent to approximately $1 to $3. World Bank data from the year 2020-21 household survey showed that more than half of Gambians, that is 53.4% or 1.1 million, were poor. Many people rely on subsistence agriculture, fishing, and tourism-related activities for their livelihood. Tourism is a major source of employment and accounts for roughly 20% of the GDP. But wages in this sector can be low, and job security is often precarious, particularly in off-peak seasons. The poor economic situation in the Gambia is in part a result of the colonial exploitation. The Gambia's colonial history began in the mid-19th century when it became a British colony, following a period of Portuguese and French trading influence. The British focused on exploiting the Gambia River for trade and resources, particularly in groundnuts, without significant investment in local development. This extraction-oriented colonial economy created a legacy of underdevelopment and economic dependency that persisted after the Gambia gained independence in 1965. Post-independence, the Gambia struggled with economic challenges, including poverty and limited industrial development. The Gambia's post-colonial period has been marked by reliance on international aid and investment, often with strings attached. Tourism emerged as a significant economic sector in the 1960s and 1970s, driven by the country's appealing climate, beaches, and low costs. However, the tourism industry developed with minimal regulatory oversight and infrastructure, creating opportunities for exploitative practices like sex tourism. Economic desperation due to limited job opportunities pushed many young Gambians, both men and women, to engage in transactional relationships with tourists from Europe. This activity is concentrated mainly in coastal tourist areas such as Kololi, Kotu, and Senegambia. Older women, some with unhappy or broken marriages, some divorced, and some just looking to have some fun, can be seen with the bumpsters at these areas hanging around on the beaches or nearby cafes and restaurants. There are good flight connections from Europe to the capital of the Gambia, which is Banjul. Numerous hotels and resorts are present here, catering to the needs of the tourists. The women get to fulfill their sexual and romantic fantasies, and men get financial support from the tourists. Money is good in this business compared to other professions in Gambia, and there are some men who also get a monthly stipend, even when the tourist is away in their home country. There are some men who also aim to get married so that they could get visas to enter Europe and upgrade their life. But that rarely happens. The power dynamics in these relationships are heavily skewed in favor of the tourists, who have the financial means to exploit the economic vulnerabilities of the locals. This exploitation often leads to emotional and psychological harm for the Gambians involved, who may also face social stigmatization and health risks, including sexually transmitted infections. A lot of times, men take the help of drugs to numb away the emotional pain and guilt of engaging in these activities. According to UNAIDS, Gambia had an HIV prevalence rate of approximately 1.9% among adults in 2020. The connection between tourism and higher STI rates is a well-documented concern, though specific data linking sex tourism to these figures in the Gambia is limited. A particularly disturbing aspect of sex tourism in the Gambia is the exploitation of children. While the majority of sex tourists target adults, there have been reports of tourists seeking sexual relationships with minors, and it's not like male sex tourism is totally absent here. You can find plenty of European older men seeking sexual favors in exchange for money here. Some media reports have referred to Gambia as the Tinder dream for geriatrics. The colonial period also left a legacy of racial and cultural attitudes that persist today. The perception of Western tourists as wealthy and powerful can be traced back to the colonial era, where the colonizers were seen as superior and dominant. The association of Gambia with sex tourism has tarnished its image as a tourist destination, deterring potential visitors who are interested in more conventional forms of tourism. This negative perception has a ripple effect on the broader tourism industry, affecting businesses and workers who rely on legitimate tourism for their livelihoods. The government is trying to improve the image of the country, and one of the measures taken by them is to market Gambia as the smiling coast of Africa. The Gambia is often referred to as the smiling coast of Africa, and this nickname can be attributed to several factors, including the country's geography, its welcoming culture, and the friendly disposition of its people. The Gambian government has taken steps to address the issue of sex tourism through legislation and law enforcement. The Tourism Offences Act, for example, aims to regulate and monitor activities in the tourism sector, including those related to sex tourism. However, the enforcement of these laws is often inconsistent, and corruption can undermine efforts to curb the practice. International organizations like ECPAT and NGOs like Child Protection Alliance have also been involved in combating sex tourism in Gambia. These efforts include awareness campaigns, support services for victims, and initiatives aimed at promoting sustainable tourism. However, the effectiveness of these interventions is often limited by resource constraints and the complex social dynamics involved. Addressing the root causes of sex tourism, including poverty and lack of economic opportunities, is essential for creating a more just and equitable society. By promoting sustainable tourism and providing support for victims, the Gambia can work towards a future where its beauty and culture are celebrated without the shadow of exploitation. So what's your take on this situation in Gambia? Let me know in the comments. That brings us to the end of the video. Alive and Curious is a new channel and would love to have your support. So if you like what I say and do, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. See you in the next one.